Yes, people, welcome back to the 1894 for a brand new video. It's the big one this time. We're bringing back the opposition fan views. It's City, it's United, it's Derby Day. Let's go talk to our pal James, the United fan, and let's see what he's thinking. Okay, so like I said, our guest for today is James, a writer for the United Stand. So we're very honoured to have you here. Even though you're a United fan, it's always good to have guests on to give their thoughts. So I suppose the first question to ask is, how are you feeling going into it? Because at the time of recording, you've just drawn away with Atalanta. Good result against Tottenham on the weekend, but then not so long ago you had your bad one against Liverpool. How's the confidence?
Yeah, it's hard to come down from that adrenaline rush of a 2-2 draw away at Atalanta. That's a game for the ages, really. So, yeah, obviously, we're only recording half an hour afterwards, so I might still be a little bit shaky, but the confidence isn't exactly flowing. I'll say that for sure. Good result against Spurs, but if you don't beat Spurs 3-0, you're in obviously you managed to beat them, which was quite funny, but right now, if you're not beating Spurs 3-0, then there's something wrong. So, swings and roundabouts into it, really.
The main talking point I've noticed surrounding all United fans and a lot of world football fans in general is Ollie's position at Man United right now. Obviously, it wasn't so long ago everyone was saying Ollie out, and then I think we got some news. It was like they're going to give him 3 games, the Tottenham game being one. I could be wrong on that, and then our game being the other. Where do you stand with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? I know people are divided. I know the ex-United players all seem to be fairly intent on backing him because they're good friends of him, but I don't know about you and the fan base.
I think I've just about seen the light. I backed Ollie to the hills, but you just can't look at the players he's got at his disposal, the money he's spent, and the performances he's putting out, and think this is not going to be a recipe for disaster. I just think he's had long enough. He's not won anything. I don't think he will win anything this season. So I'd hate to sack him, given the status he has in the club, and I'd like nothing more than to win a trophy with him. But I don't see it happening. I don't know how long we can go on like this, continually mocking ourselves as we have done many times this season already.
Yeah, I mean, if I was a United fan myself, I would be the exact same as you. But in terms of this actual fixture, which we're looking at, Ollie does seem to have a number on Pep. I hate to say, I've been to plenty of the games where, for some reason, we just crumble under the Derby pressure, or Pep makes wrong decisions. And players like Dan James and Marcus Rashford have come to haunt us. So does that give you any form of confidence? I know the overall picture, it has been quite doom and gloom, but on this one particular fixture, there's no confidence come from recent years.
Maybe, but we've generally come into City games on good form anyway. You know, we've not in this sort of situation under Solskjaer yet. We've always been a decent team that could beat anyone on the day, whereas now beat Spurs on your day, but I think you go down and take Spurs to Bradford, and I think Bradford do a number on them. So, yeah, I think it's interesting you mentioned Dan James there, because he's the perfect player for this game, a winger who actually tracks back, and I think that's where we got caught out with Liverpool, just bypassing the forward line way too easy, and instantly you've got 11 players against the 6, the 2 midfielders and the 4 at the back. So, team as technical as City, you do worry that we're just going to get picked off, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was only actually having this conversation with, I think, Joe during the United game tonight in our general on the server, which was that Ronaldo, who's obviously the main talisman now, he's come in and to be fair to him, he is banging goals. I think I saw a stat tonight that said he accounts for something like 50% of all of United's goals, or whether he's directly involved, either scoring or assisting. But he won't do that role that players like Dan James, with their exceptional pace, did. He won't press, and he won't be able to counter as fast as United have done in their successful games against City in recent years. So I would imagine it'll be a slightly different approach from Ollie, and obviously with Varane, who went off injured tonight, I don't know if he'll be available for Saturday. I assume he'll have to change his tactics from the successful one that he had against Spurs last week. What way do you expect him to approach it?
I think the 5 at the back will probably go now that there's no chance Varane makes the game. He hobbled off after about half an hour today, so back 5 was all right while it lasted. But yeah, that's gone now. So I don't know. A back 2 of Bailly and Maguire is not filling me with confidence, especially after Maguire's performance today. But it'll be a complete smash and grab if we get anything. I think we'll maybe create a few chances on the counter, and that's about it. I think it's definitely going to be, especially with the situation Ollie's in as well. He cannot lose that game. I don't think he has to win it, but he cannot lose it. I think he'll set up for a 0-0 and take it if he gets it. But I'm not expecting any You never do as a United fan in the last couple of years, but I'm not expecting any sort of proactive, dynamic football to be played or anything like that.
Yeah, I suppose the thing with Ronaldo is, I know I was saying there he won't do that kind of role that has really penetrated us in recent years, but he also does have that game-winning moment in him, and that does strike fear into me. Obviously, Rashford loves a derby as well, and I'm sure Sancho, if he got to go on the pitch, he would absolutely love to run amok. But Dara, on that point, I suppose it'd be interesting to get the City fan perspective as well, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in our own specific preview. But what are you expecting from United? I know James has given his sort of set of prediction. What do you think?
I think now, honestly, it's going to be sit back, try counter. I don't think they play the 5 because, like James said, no Varane, probably no Varane. But like, I mean, I think you're asking for 6 or 7 to go in against you if you're playing Lindelof, Maguire, and Boye as your back 3. But I do still think he's going to set up as defensive as he can. Like, you know, whether it be it'll just be Fernandes hanging off Ronaldo, and then the McFred in our back four. Like, it's not going to be pretty to try to break down, because they have a bit of resilience about them. They seem to have, judging off last season, they have enough about them in a derby to know how to just hold off and counter attack, and then maybe get a little bit of luck with Gabriel Jesus chopping someone down in the box or something. You know what I mean? I just think it's the worst type of football to play against your ball dominant team who pass it around. You know.
Lack of goals in the last 2 games really worries me. But then again, having watched Maguire tonight, I thought he was absolutely abysmal. I'm not just saying that to be biased. James, I'd love to know your thoughts on Maguire and your centre-back pairing coming into a game that does have so much ball in City, who will probably be able to penetrate a little bit better than Atalanta did.
Yeah, it's a bit of a worry. I think I was a massive fan of Maguire last season. I think he did fantastically well, and then taking that into the Euros as well. But yeah, you look at him today. Like someone said, I don't know if it was a pundit or just someone on Twitter, they said he looks drunk when he's playing at the minute. And he does. He's missing the ball. He's not going in for challenges he should do. He's going in for challenges that he shouldn't do. And he just seems... He seems like the player that everyone takes the mick out of, rather than the player that really established himself as a quality Premier League centre-half last season. So it's worrying. I think without Varane there next to him as well, it's going to be even worse. I think Lindelof's out as well. So you put in a sort of erratic Harry Maguire alongside an even more erratic Rick Bailly. And I think if City are just patient with their build-up, don't just wait for their openings, they're bound to come, as pessimistic as that sounds.
What do you think? There must be opportunities there with Maguire in such poor form right now.
There is, but it's another game that's calling out for a goal scorer, and it's calling out for a striker, someone who can get in behind, someone's making the runs. Just don't have that at the minute. They're playing their false 9. Torres is injured. Jesus is better on the right. I don't know what's going to happen. Like, Sterling could end up getting a run out if he performs. We haven't watched Bruges tomorrow. If he performs there, he'll probably get a run out against United. You know, it's like trying to predict what's going to happen with Pep Roulette is just, it's ridiculous. But again, this is one that's calling out for a goal scorer that we don't have.
So I always find these games really hard to preview, and I find when for previewing City games in general for the past kind of 18 months, it's kind of been repetitive. You're saying similar things all the time, especially last season when we were going through a really long winning streak. You know, you're saying the same things week in, week out, just more of the same. But just stepping back from this actual fixture itself, I want to know a bit about your thoughts on the direction and the recent history of Manchester United, James. Obviously, a really good feel factor in the summer. You nabbed Ronaldo allegedly from out of our hands. You signed Sancho for big money. You brought Varane in, and I must say there was a period, and there's probably evidence to show it in our group chats. I was worried. I was saying this team are going to be a serious force, because they can't not be with serial winners like Ronaldo and Varane coming in. And where did it all go wrong? Is it as simple as just Ollie isn't good enough, or is there problems in the dressing room, you reckon, or just your overall thoughts, really?
It is difficult to pinpoint, but yeah, like you said, there's such a feel good factor this summer, because we'd gone from a third place in the league his first full season, which we probably shouldn't have got, to a second place in his second season, which we before the season started we definitely shouldn't have got as well. So there was a real feeling that this momentum can be carried forward, and if this progression continues, it's inevitable that we'll become challengers. And then you have the transfer window that we had, and you're thinking, here we go, we could actually do this here. I really don't know. I think that there's possibly a problem with the balance in egos. I think, look at the players that Ollie signed, they've not been massive names in the sense of a Jadon Sancho, a Rafael Varane, and a Cristiano Ronaldo. You know, Bruno Fernandes was just a native Portuguese player playing for Sporting Lisbon. He was highly regarded, but he wasn't a big name at that point. Harry Maguire as well has never been a massive personality, so maybe that's a factor into it. There's a lot, but I think the players are losing faith in his tactics. I think he's getting shown up a little bit now. When his tried and trusted lineups aren't working, he just sticks with them. There's this relentless desire to just play this 11 that he wants, even when it's not working. And it's been sort of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, in terms of we've been unlucky to lose a few games, we've been very lucky to win a few games, and it's just, generally speaking, the performances have been horrendous even when we have won games. So it's not an understatement to say it's not gone well so far this season at all.
Yeah, it's a real surprise, but I think world football fans, when United did confirm the signing of Ronaldo, the most intriguing part was what the dynamic of the dressing room was going to be like. You know, Ronaldo coming into play is under a manager who was on the bench during his last spell at the club. So I felt there was kind of going to be an imbalance of power, and the players in the dressing room would be looking towards Ronaldo essentially as their leader, and that seems to be a huge factor right now. I've noticed that Ronaldo is some of his body language on the pitch, whenever I've seen it briefly, has been poor at times. But I've not really focused in on it much myself, so I don't really know. I'd love to know your thoughts on the Ronaldo signing overall, because obviously we were allegedly so close to getting him, and how you think it's gone.
You fully just thrown us under the bus there with the Ronaldo signing, haven't you? I think you just that is a panic buy. We called Cavani a panic buy last season. Ronaldo is the definition of a panic buy. We think you might be getting Ronaldo's, so suddenly we swoop in. You sign a player Ronaldo, like you said, his ego, his personality is he has to be the star of the show, which fair enough, he's earned that right. But when we had such a balanced team last year, especially towards the end of the season, you had Cavani firing. You've plugged the big holes that we had last year with Sancho and Varane, and you were laying the foundations for a very, very good team to build on what was a good team last year. I don't think anyone can deny United were a good team last year, and you bring in Ronaldo and he demands to be started every week, whether he says it outwardly or not. Cristiano Ronaldo, the brand, the person, needs to start every single week, and you need to accommodate him. I just think it's really thrown us out of kilter from the real momentum we were gaining last season with the balanced 11 that we had. Yeah,
and when you signed him, it was obviously towards the very end of the transfer window. And before the whole Ronaldo kind of saga really begun, I just assumed United would sign a defensive midfielder, because I hate to say it, but I do believe that if United did have a top quality defensive midfielder, they would be still a completely different team to what we see right now. And do you think that did affect the possibility of signing one? I don't know how many really top defensive midfielders there are out there, but surely it was on their radar to possibly sign one.
I think their top target was Rice, and they were sort of priced out of a move. But I think if the right move would have come up, I was reading the other day that it's horrible to read, but we were close to signing Idrissa Gueye, but we just didn't have the funds available for it. I think even he'd have done a better job than a McFred pivot. But yeah, it was a priority over Sancho and Varane. A defensive midfielder was, but like you said, it probably wasn't right. Well, the owners like to use the phrase "value in the market," which is shocking. But yeah, there probably wasn't the right player out there that was really available. So instead, we just decided to throw money up the wall and bring in a 36-year-old who has some connection with the club, just because why not?
I know hindsight is a beautiful thing, but having watched Ronaldo briefly a few times now so far in the Premier League this season, I do feel a little bit like we've dodged a bullet. I think he would slow down our overall style of play, and he wouldn't be able to link as well as a lot of our attacking midfielders. Even dare I say, I think Jack Grealish is on track to being a more successful signing than Ronaldo would have been. I know, like I said, hindsight is a beautiful thing, but Dara, how do you view it now that it's all said and done, and we're 10 games in now?
Being honest, right, I do think we dodged a bullet. Be it the dressing room stuff, the fact that he probably throws out Kilda like he has done United. But I'd be lying if I didn't say I'd be 10 times more confident going into this match with Ronaldo there, with someone who's a known goal scorer. That's the only thing about it. But other than that, I think overall we have dodged a major bullet. That's going to come back to bite me in the arse now when he scores 2 on Saturday. But for now, it looks like we've dodged a major bullet.
Yeah, he is a serial winner, and like I said a few minutes ago, that is that's one of the biggest fears I have this weekend, is that if it's, say, 0-0 or 1 each going into the 85th, 90th minute, this guy's capable of bagging a winner, is he? But in terms of the overall way you would like United set up, in your ideal world, James, if you were Ole Gunnar Solskjaer on a Friday evening and you're picking your starting 11, what way would you like it to go?
Well, when you factor in the players that are available, I think Varane and Lindelof are out injured and Pogba's suspended, although looking at his last couple of performances, that's probably a benefit to us rather than you. But yeah, back line, you got to go De Gea, Luke Shaw, Maguire, Bailly and Wan-Bissaka. Then I've got no faith in it, but you've got to do it. We've got to stick with a McFred pivot in this game with the amount of defending they're going to have to do. We don't have midfielders capable of defending as well as they can. So if you're shutting up shop, you've got to go with them. And then you just need tenacity in the front four. Fernandes will definitely start. I think we will probably see Cavani for his energy. I think Solskjaer got his hand burnt by starting Ronaldo against Liverpool, and it really backfired. And you're just looking for energy then. So probably Rashford and Greenwood. He seems to not like Sancho, so I can't see him starting at the minute.
Yeah, that's a really weird one, actually. It's probably an interesting talking point considering he's had his history at both clubs. What are your thoughts on Sancho? The whole thing. I don't think he's got a goal or assist yet.
He hasn't. He's come into, as we've seen, a very dysfunctional team. We know that transition from Germany to England isn't easy. Just look at Chelsea's 2 record signings before Lukaku. They really struggled last season. So I wasn't expecting big things. But then when you throw him into a team that's been torn apart by signing of Ronaldo, really, he's just thrown everything into off kilter. Sorry. Not easy for him. We don't play the best style of attacking football anyway. You look at how he played against at Dortmund. Fast, it was quick, it was one touch, there was interplay and sustained pressure as well, whereas at United we generally don't do that. It's very counter-attacking, try and build moves. If they come off, we score. If they don't, which is fairly frequently, then we don't. But yeah, it was always going to take him a while to adapt, but I think his adaptation period hasn't been helped by the status of the squad at the minute and the fact we're not doing well. There's a lot of pressure on him, and the fact that Ollie's now taking him out of the limelight as such. I'm not sure what's going on, but just can't seem to get in the team at all.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. Dara, what are your thoughts on that, on the Sancho situation?
I'm taking the piss out of him as much as I can before he comes good, because I know it's as soon as United they'll sack Solskjaer, they get another manager in who'll play the football that'll suit him, and then he'll come good. So genuinely, whoever's watching this is taking the piss out of Sancho, do what he can, because but buy stocks in him is what I'm saying, because I think he's just going to take off once they sack Solskjaer and they get in the manager who wants to play good football with a good team, with goal scorers ahead of him now. He could take off in the next couple of years if they really just if they double down and just get a new manager in. I think he said scarier. I said it will be scarier.
Yeah, I think I was saying that to one of you the other day, that if United do sign a new or do get a new manager, I think they said it's 2 weeks ago and they just lost to Liverpool. That I was really hoping they wouldn't get a new manager in, because the initial bounce would probably bring players like Sancho and Shaw, who was someone who I was really impressed with during the summer in the Euros. I don't think he's hit the heights so far this Premier League campaign that maybe he did hit throughout the Euros. I thought if they got a new manager, essentially the players like Sancho, who would get an opportunity and get a big bounce of confidence, would come good. And I think he will come good ultimately, because I don't personally see Ollie being at Man United for a long time to come. I think it's only a matter of time before you do have another run of bad performances and then the board say that's enough. But in terms of that, the significance of this game, if you are to get peppered again in another bad result, do you think that's it for Ollie, James, or do you think if you get a win, does the confidence slowly become restored?
Again, it'll be all. I say this quite frequently at the minute. It'll be all be down to the performance. If we get battered for 90 minutes and sneak a 1-0 win, I don't think that's going to do him any favours at all, really. But I think if we lose the game in any sort of not respectable way, if we get 3 or 4 or any more than that, which by all means it could, and I think he needs to go. I don't think he will, though. I think the United board have reached levels of incompetency that we can't quite fathom. So they'll keep him they'll keep him in charge as long as it's financially viable. They're going to hold off that severance package for as long as they can. So you don't need to worry about us coming good anytime soon, because the Glazers are very happy to just sit there and take the dividends and what they don't watch the team. They don't care how they're getting on the pitch. They'll start caring when United aren't getting the Champions League money, when United aren't getting the sponsorship deals they once were, because no one really cares about them anymore. That's when it already hit home. So I don't think performances on the pitch really have any indication of whether Solskjaer stays or goes at the minute, which is a shame.
Yeah, you mentioned the Glazers. They seem to have a really interesting relationship with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and the kind of talk on Twitter is that it's because he's a yes man. Ole, he just kind of says yes to absolutely everything, and it seems to be that he's someone the Glazers or Ed Woodward can kind of bully easily and manipulate easily, and as long as he kind of secure a top four and stay in that Champions League sort of area, everything's fine. Which is really kind of weird for a club the size of Manchester United. With I hate talking about it, the amount of success you've had. For as long as I can remember, it's surprising to see that they've almost lowered their standards. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'd love to know your opinion on that.
It's definitely it's a business rather than a football club now, and I think United are such a big brand that the fourth place finish every single season won't diminish their worldwide reputation. It won't affect them financially. The sponsorships are still coming in because it's still Manchester United, and that's the big issue. You know, the problem we've had is you calculate what would it take to send United from Champions League places to winning the league. It'd take a good manager and maybe a £50 million defensive midfielder. So that's maybe 70 million in total when you take out severance pay. How much is the difference between fourth place prize money and top of the league prize money? Less than 70 million. So what financial benefit do the Glazers have from pushing us to league contenders? Like I said, they don't care what goes on the pitch. They haven't got the slightest clue what football is outside of America. They can't figure out how we're allowed to use our feet so much. Why no one's picking it up? But it is just a business. They're more focused on the revenue and the advertising and building United's brand than building a solid football club that's sustainable on and off the pitch. It's sad at the minute, and I think it's a sign of the times of what's about to come with a lot of clubs. I think more and more United get away with it, the more owners are going to realise, well, we don't actually need to win on the pitch. We need to win off it, and we'll get money. So I think a lot of clubs should be worried as well.
I can understand if I'm being cynical about it, I can understand why they feel like that as a business, if that's the mentality that they maintain. But as fans of the club, people who spend money to go watch the team, you buy the merchandise. Well, I don't know if you do. I know the green and gold thing is a big campaign. It must be really frustrating, like really frustrating.
Oh yeah. I'm lucky in a sense that I only had first 13 years of my life in success. If I was a 40-year-old now and I'd had my whole life, 26 years of Fergie, where he was winning 2 trophies a year, and I was subject to this, and the owners that we have, it'd be horrible. But yeah, it's not going in a good direction. The fans often make their voice heard, obviously not in the sense that they did when they got the Liverpool game called off. I think the frustrating thing was a lot of fans that like to act big on social media, pretend they're behind the cause, saw Jadon Sancho and Rafa Varane and Ronaldo come in, and they were going, oh well, maybe they're not that bad. But you go to Old Trafford, the Glazers are a hated figure there, so there's still an outcry for them to be gone. Whether that's the social media side of it's gone, and I get we rightfully get bantered a little bit for that, but there's a big dissatisfaction around the club with the Glazers. No matter how much they spend on the team, I don't think United fans will ever be happy with them.
Yeah, understandably so, I think. Before we go into the score predictions, I want to have a slightly light-hearted conversation, which is something that, because you played Liverpool just 2 weeks ago and now you play us, it's a conversation topic that has been on the lips of many YouTube channels and people on Twitter, which is the Manchester derby versus Liverpool versus Manchester United. I think it's one the pair of you can kind of give your 2 pence on. Which one ranks higher for you, James, and why?
It has always been the Liverpool derby, because I hate Liverpool more than I hate Manchester City. I think the more City grow into football, the more they establish this reputation as a big team, then that gap will begin to close. But I don't think you're far off that by any means. Don't take any disrespect to that. But you've only been around realistically in my lifetime since I was 11 or 12. So I've always had a hatred for Liverpool, so that's always going to be ahead of it for me. And I think a lot of fans, the United fans, will agree with that. But Manchester derby is definitely getting more tense and a bit more. It's definitely more competitive now. You realistically, you've been the better of the 2 teams since Fergie left. So But yeah, I think it's purely based on reputations that Liverpool there's a long-standing hatred for them, whereas you were always sort of seen as the little brother. And I think you're probably a Champions League and a couple more league titles away from getting rid of that reputation. But I think subconsciously, a lot of fans still have that thought about Manchester City.
You know what, mate? I actually respect your honesty and your opinion there, because it's very easy to sit there as a United fan, I imagine, with the amount of history and success you have had, to go, you know, you'll never be on our level, all this kind of stuff, and bang that drum. And I've seen plenty of United fans, credible ones as well, doing that on YouTube in recent weeks, and I kind of find it very hollow, because I don't know, I think it's a bit unfair to suggest that City can never catch up or be on that level, and the fact that you're alluding to it becoming a possibility now rather than out of the equation is respectable, to be fair. Dara, what are your thoughts on that? Obviously, James mentioned we're probably a couple of titles and maybe a Champions League off, maybe hitting Manchester United's reputation level. What do you think?
I think overall, obviously, I can't speak on the Liverpool and United derby just purely because he'd be half watching it as a neutral, if not wanting someone to lose for a title race means. But when it comes to City and United, that'd be the game that be you, Joe, any other City fan would be looking forward to every year. And I do agree with him that we're only that much away, but at the same time, with the amount of new fans City are gaining, whether it be from the fact they're only picking up football now or the fact that it's being bred into them, and it's going to happen over the next 20 years as well, that this will only become a bigger game because there will be more City fans because they're bred in with success. So I don't even think it's about titles and that, because I do think there will just be that hatred built up by other City fans as they grow older and become City fans as well. You know what I mean?
Sorry, Hugh, can I jump in and flip it around to you guys? Because I saw a poll a year ago that a lot of City fans, more City fans now class Liverpool as their biggest rivals, United. Do you I don't get how that could ever possibly work. You've been competitive with them for a couple of years now. Do you agree with that?
No, I will never agree with that. For me, it will always be Manchester United, but I understand why they're saying it, even though I don't agree with it. And it kind of relates to the point, it kind of relates to why you maybe view Liverpool as your biggest rivals, because you had such a period in history where you were going head to head for titles so regularly, and you're both the big dogs in the country and in Europe, essentially, that you formed that rivalry and that hatred. And I think City and Liverpool is not on that level. It's nowhere near that level because it's so recent. But if it was to progress for another 5, 10, 15 years in that direction, where those were just the two top dogs, I think you could see it forming. But currently and for the foreseeable future, it will always be Man United. There's no one in the league I hate more than Manchester United. Without being too disrespectful, it's just the way it is. But I do understand why people say it, and I think newer City fans and younger City fans who are maybe getting into football now, maybe between sort of 8 and 12 years old, because all they know is when City are challenging for leagues in recent years, Liverpool have been the nearest rival or else the team slightly above us. So they may have a bit more discontent towards Liverpool. Darren, I don't know what you think about that.
I same as you. I don't hate any other team as much as I hate United. It's not even fucking close, right? But on a pure footballing team, right? Pure footballing level, City and Liverpool is the greatest match on planet Earth at the minute. We saw that when we played them. We have done for years now. It's the best pure footballing game. It's the best pure footballing rivalry at this minute. Pure football, as it comes down to the two best teams in the world playing. It's like a Classico, only in the north of England now. You know what I mean? But it's two of the best teams coming together. It's the best footballing derby, but I don't think there was that rivalry. There was a competitive rivalry for the last few years, but there's no real hatred involved. I don't think. I think we just have a weird little disdain. But the only time City and Liverpool fans respect each other is actually the week in the build up to the match, which I found really funny.
Yeah, it is an interesting one, and I know you said you hate Liverpool that bit more, but I saw an interesting conversation. I think it was between Steve McInerney and someone else earlier on, which was that for fans, Man United fans anyway, that live in Manchester, even though they may say, just to kind of upset City fans, that we don't view you on that level, you're not as important to us as the Liverpool game, it will bother them more to lose to City because they have to go into work on Monday morning and sit beside a blue who'll give them in the ear, or the person next door to them on their road is a blue who'll give them in the ear. So subconsciously it will bother them more, even though just to try and belittle the City fans, they'll say that game doesn't matter as much, if you kind of know what I mean.
I think as well, it's sort of City are a perfect example of how far United have fallen, really. When you look how far ahead United were of City for years and years and years. You know, you're in League One while we were winning trebles, that sort of thing. But, you know, obviously a lot of it has come from your success, but I think a lot of United fans take a bit of disdain towards City because they act as the sort of perfect metaphor for the state that United are in now. I think United fans go into most games against City half expecting to lose. I think only the most diehard of United fans will even try and convince you that United are a better team at this moment in time. So, you know, I think that's where it's almost like a bit of embarrassment when you come to City, you're half expecting to lose in a game against a team that a lot of United fans grew up taking the piss out of.
Yeah, like if you remember back to like Alex Ferguson talking about it as just the noisy neighbours across the road and all this kind of stuff, and sneering at the idea of City ever coming on top or overtaking United or anything like that. It's kind of weird to look back on. Could you ever foresaw it getting to even this point?
I was way too young. Like, well, I say way too young. I was like 12, 13 when you won that Aguero title, and I didn't realise the ramifications of having such rich owners at the time. But as soon as I started fully understanding what was going on, by then you were already established as one of the best teams in England, and you were like, oh, it's just Man City. I never really knew Man City as you know, the League One team that you once were. You were always. I think we went through a period when I was getting into football where we just constantly lose to you. I remember there was a Munich Memorial game derby where you were like, I'm off. We were running away with the league, and you still managed to beat us 2-1 or something. I think Joe scored something. That was it. Johnny, that was it. Yeah. I just remember. I always used to remember City as that team. It were never really any good, but got results against us frequently. But yeah, but by the time I fully started understanding what was going on and everything, it was, oh, that's City. They win the league every other year at least, and it's just that.
Yeah, I asked you if you ever were able to foresee it. I know you said you were young, but so was I. I think I was 12 as well when it happened. But at that time, I couldn't have predicted City to ever get to this stage, because all I'd known following them all along was when you play United, you're kind of 70% expecting not to win. You know, you got that Alex Ferguson factor. You got a really good team all the time, and if you do beat United, it's just a massive wow. This is unbelievable. And then to win that league after 44 years, you just go, this is the pinnacle. This is it. You know, we've done it now. You can die and go to heaven. If you were to tell me 10 years ago or whenever that was, that now we would have won, what is it, 4 in 10 years, something like that, 5 in 10 years. I don't even know. I would have told you you're crazy. It just doesn't work like that. And then for the best manager in the world, Pep Guardiola, to come to City and spend 5 or 6 years, I would have just laughed, because the transition from the club when it got taken over by Sheikh Mansour to where it is now is absolutely outrageous. Dara, what do you think on that point? I think it's an interesting one.
Yeah, no, it's a constant. Just we're on the up again and again and again, and you might like it's 5. I think it's 5 now since the Aguero goal, but that's. Like, it just shows again, the more you build on this, again, the more fans you get, the bigger the rivalry will get. And I like James saying that's just like the mirror image of the decline of United now. Just, you can't pick a much better time to pick it up at this point. Like, I'm really enjoying it.
I could sit here all night and poke at James about the poor form of Manchester United as a club in recent years. But listen, the bottom line is, a club that big, I hate to say it, that you can't keep them down forever. Do you know what I mean? It's only a matter of time before Ollie does leave. You bring in someone half decent who actually knows what they're doing, and he gets that shit back on track. But listen, like I said, we could sit here all night and talk about that. So I want to get your score predictions, and maybe give me a bit of a rundown of your final thoughts going into it, James. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. You want to go over it?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on. I've really enjoyed it. But I'll stay optimistic and say nick a 2-1 win against my intuition and natural feelings. Yeah, I'll stay positive for the United fans. I think we'll win 2-1. We'll keep Ollie in. I'll keep Ollie in a job for another 6 months, and we'll be even more depressed in a couple of months' time. But yeah, final thoughts. Just please. When the inevitable does happen, just go easy on us. That's all I'll say right now. That I can't help but feel like we've got another Liverpool coming up, especially with the absentees we now have. We've got our best centre back out, and Pogba's not a miss. Listen, he got his 7 assists in 3 games and then mentally checked out. I don't think he'll play well again for the rest of the season by the looks of it. But yeah. such a disjointed unit. If you turn up, which you very rarely do in Manchester derbies, luckily for us, if you finally decide, if Sterling decides he wants to score one of the open goals, we give him every single game, and it could be pretty gruesome.
Fair enough. You've got an optimistic James there now in the final few minutes. He's gone for a United win. Myself and Dara will give our score predictions on our City-specific preview, which comes out tomorrow, Friday, 12:30, 24 hours before every kickoff. We release our preview. James, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to leave a link down to your Twitter, or is there anything else you'd like us to link down below in the description, where you post your content from United fans to have a look?
Just Twitter. I'm an attention whore on Twitter, so follow me. Why not?
Absolutely. Go down to the link below in the description and follow James. He's a good guy. We don't like many United fans, but we like James here in the 1894. Thanks again for coming on. Do leave a like on the video, everyone, if you enjoy it, and subscribe if you're new. We've just surpassed 500. We would love to try and hit 1,000 maybe by the end of the season. Could be a stretch, but we'll give it a go. With your help, it all becomes possible. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you very soon.